Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hey, thank you for watching. This is Opinion versus Opinion. I'm Rob Charney. That's John Majestic and Jonathan Charney. And we're here to talk about opinion and versus opinion, whatever it is that we want to talk about. So, first thing I want to do is acknowledge the fact that today is 7/11.
7/11?
9/11. 9/11. Wow, I am tired. 9/11.
You need to go to the 7-Eleven.
I need to go to 7-Eleven, get me an energy drink so I can say 9/11. But in all seriousness, folks, this is a day to remember. And again, to all those that lost family, friends, acquaintances, anybody in that, our sincerest condolences. And let's not forget. We'll make it like the Alamo. We won't forget.
I will share with you that I won't forget for many, many reasons. And it is the 12-year anniversary of me quitting smoking tobacco. Because I could save nobody's life that day but my own.
Well, that's one way of remembering when you give up cigarettes.
Yeah, it's a very, any moment away for everything associated with this day. It means too much.
Yeah.
I pointed out to my students today that also in this year, on November the 22nd, we will celebrate the 50th anniversary of the assassination of the president,
Correct.
John F. Kennedy.
Right.
Which has as many stories, as many controversies, as many conspiracies as 9/11. It seems to be inherent in the American lexicon.
Conspiracy theorists.
Well,
yes.
I don't know if you want to get on kind of a similar vein as the fact that conspiracy theories in the U.S. generally, not always far from the truth from the history of the U.S. government doing things secretly.
What's your mic number?
I'm 3.
Okay.
Like MK Ultra, stuff like that.
It's not, some of them heavily supportable. There's no doubt about it. And I asked the question, where was the wreckage in Pennsylvania, and how come Building 7 fell down? But
right. Well,
be that as it may,
stranger things have happened. The John Kennedy thing, I know that John and I both will remember very much that day, and the whole country basically came to a halt during that period of time.
Live televised murder the next day.
Yeah, it was very something. We were let go. The schools closed early.
We were for a week, weren't we, Rob?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
At least, yeah.
It was live, right? Was it live when it happened?
You mean on television?
Yeah.
No, there was a delay. We didn't quite have satellites and stuff like we do now.
But it was broadcast.
But it was broadcast.
The president was not live. The Zapruder film and other film in private people's hands.
Correct.
Were the only
video
filmic documentation of
correct,
the event.
Right, yeah. But it was...
The killing of Lee Harvey Oswald by Jack Ruby, that was live. We all saw that on TV.
Yeah, it's, we did. And that whole period of time, I can't explain to the youth out there what it was like, what it felt like, what it meant. The whole country was in a whole different situation. We just had gotten through as close as we've ever been to having World War III.
It was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The Cuban Missile Crisis, Bay of Pigs. It was a period of time that was just incredible to be part of. And fortunately, we were old enough to really know what was going on. And it was frightening. It was absolutely frightening.
You were in the 6th grade. I was at John Adams in the 7th grade.
Right.
So you were across the street at Roy Rogers, if I remember correctly.
I think so, yeah.
So there you go.
And it was something. And I assumed that another assassination of a president would be the same way. I mean, it'd be a horrible thing. The country was in mourning.
Then we got to see Robert Kennedy get assassinated live on TV in, I think it was June or July of 1968.
He was at the Beverly Hilton, and I was...
At the Ambassador.
Ambassador, excuse me. You're right. I was there.
Okay,
I was... Yeah.
You were actually there?
I was actually at the hotel. We were part of the campaign group. There was a youth group of, during these conferences or caucuses, as they were called, there were younger members of the caucuses that did most of the running back and forth between rooms and things like that. And I was one of them, and I was there. I wasn't in the room where he was assassinated, but I was there.
Okay, I have a question. This is my cynical side coming out. Do you think, God forbid, somebody ends up assassinating Obama or the next president, do you think that it would have the same effect? Because I'm not sure if it would.
No.
I'm not sure if it would.
So at all.
It won't be at the same level of John Kennedy, because you got to remember, love him or hate him, everybody respected John Kennedy. There's no doubt about it. So would it be the same for Obama? It'd be close. It would be a tragedy, but it wouldn't be the same.
Because my thought...
Well, the thing is, the president is much more accessible now. He's... and after, the dirt that got thrown on the president in the Nixon resignation, the Clinton impeachment, and the last, the Obama administration. I mean, there's some people that flat out hate the man.
Well, that's what I was...
Flat out,
Yeah, and there would probably
reason,
be some people that would celebrate it. I think it would be horrible. It would be the worst thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah, you would have guys like Louis Gohmert and Alan West and others that have been probably Glenn Beck, not.
I don't know. I pushed Glenn Beck.
I don't even know about Alan West, but here's my thought, because I thought the same thing about when Bush happened. That when Bush if he was assassinated, my thought was most of the liberals that hate him would celebrate, the Republicans would be sad, and I think it's kind of the same way for Obama a little bit. I think maybe there's more healing that's happened since people are starting to look Obama as a person instead of a party, but
right now there wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I'll take that chance to go with my thing here.
Okay.
As to what's going on in Syria, what's going on diplomatically, it's been a crazy couple of days, to put it mildly. And I have to tell you that I have changed my position at this point. And if I were in Congress or if I were in the Senate, I probably would have changed. I would probably have changed my vote. And that is, I'm not thrilled to death with last night's speech, because 2/3 of it was in the can, and he had given it to the Black Caucus. He had given it to the Democratic representation in the House and the Senate, and then he said, "But I'm again disappointed by the president not saying, and if this does not transpire within the next 30 days, 45 days, and there actually is a Senate memorandum that says 45 days. Because I do believe that at the G20, the president and Mr. Putin got together, and the president told Mr. Putin in no uncertain way, we ain't mucking about here, brother. This guy used chemical weapons. We're not putting up with it. We're building our support at home. We're building it internationally. And I do believe they blinked from the standpoint that Assad admitted he has chemical weapons. Up until that point, he had never admitted that he had chemical weapons. He has said that he will sign on to the international treaty of getting rid of his chemical weapons and sharing with the international community. That is strong. The United States, the Soviet Union, all of the countries that have had chemical weapons have signed on to this treaty.
Soviet Union?
Excuse me, and the Soviet Union.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, but it's Russia.
Soviet is the big... Well,
they're no longer.
Russia is a big player in this.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Putin,
And I think what Putin said is, look, or what Obama said to Putin is, look, you're in this as much as we are. Whether you can't distance yourself from it, and these weapons are going to, chemical weapons of destruction are sitting on your southern border as well. And in many ways, they don't like you any better than they like us. Okay, you're a superpower. You play games, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My issue is, and I think I would have rewritten the speech that was given last night. I was not duly impressed. But I would have said, I would have said, okay, this is great. We love the diplomatic solution to this. And we need to go to the UN, and, we need to get the 189 countries that are signed on to the Chemical Weapons Treaty, to press. Assad said he would. Here's the treaty. Sign it. And a bit of the sword rattling had some effect. I think for it to continue to have effect and maybe move this to an end, we need to vote to say, yeah, if after 45 days, no, we put our finger back on the buttons, boys. He did say last night, we're not standing down from our military position because Assad and the Russians. Putin's the one that's going to be, he is the liar and the rotten fish in the barrel. He's the one who'll, tell you this and then do that.
But he's scary, though. He's...
we've all talked about that.
He's a hot-headed little Russian.
Yeah, he is.
Very
and
dangerous.
He's not particularly loved in his own country.
No.
He's been in power. He's had puppet presidents. Putin be whatever he is, but he's certainly no Joe Stalin.
Good
Stalin
thing.
Was scary.
Good thing.
He killed more people. He killed more of his own people. Than Hitler killed Jews, gypsies, and everybody else.
Right.
Just to make sure he stayed in power.
Right.
My feeling is that I would like to see the Congress support that if after a set period of time that this does not move forward, you've not signed on the treaty, you've not opened your doors. It is difficult because it's a hot war to go there and inspect. But the fact of the matter is, this should be done exclusive of the war. Here's where they are. Send the people in, which will be Americans. We happen to be the country that that has the technology and the people that can verify and neutrify. Wrong word.
Yeah.
Neutralize the gases. We're the ones with the technology.
Right. But that, my understanding, we're just talking about stockpiling these.
Right.
Russia said, "All right, bring it over here, and we'll stockpile it."
Right. We'll hold on to it for you.
Yeah.
But they're signed onto the treaty, so they have an inherent, order amongst all the other 189 countries to destroy it. I will put forth the opposite idea, which is the idea that seems to resonate across the board. The hearings became ridiculously political at that point, and I'm going, guys, enough. And of course, Congress again today tried to repeal funding for Obamacare for the 42nd time. Well, all this other stuff is going on. The issue, and my friend Chris Matthews said, no. We can't vote for it. We can't do it because and an aspect that I see to be true. If we kill as many people in the strategic strike as he killed with the weapons,
yes,
point moot.
Right.
Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? And in the eyes of these people, I'm just hoping that diplomacy, that we can put enough people's feet to the fire, that we can, get Assad to sign the treaty. And then we, at that point, have 189 allies that have complied or are complying, and then it is an international deal. I wasn't, and again, I will repeat, I was not at all impressed by the speech last night. For all the build-up, it was no Cuban Missile Crisis speech. It was no, Rob, you and I have had the unique experience in our lifetime to hear some pretty amazing political speeches that moved America.
Right.
That didn't so much move America.
No, it's.
But I myself have I agree with Matthews. I would like to see the Congress say, look, if you don't comply, then the pressure is not going away, and the heat will be turned up if you're just stalling with these tactics.
So was it ever talked about who actually made these weapons? These are Russian, aren't they?
Actually, the Syrians made these weapons, and there is good evidence that our friends in Great Britain sold them many of the components to make the weapons.
Okay. So these are actually produced by Syria. Now they're going to be stored by Russia. Does that give you a warm fuzzy?
No. Russia said that was the initial offer. Look, we'll store them. And Russia in the Security Council is, doing what they would do. They're making it difficult for the UN and to come together and bring a vote. What started it was, Kerry saying, look, what we could do diplomatically if they surrendered the weapons to the international community for destruction. At that point, Putin, who I think that some of Obama's words got to Putin, because he's at least, not hard-lining it here. He said, well, okay, we'll take the weapons. But implicit in him taking the weapons, since they're part of the anti-chemical treaty, would mean they need to destroy them.
Right.
And one of the reasons he might wanted to do it, because you have Al-Qaeda, you have a very unstable actors, terrorists in the area. And again, they don't like the Russians any better than they like us. So they could be used on, they could be used on our allies. They could, you just don't want chemical weapons in that part of the world. Because, Assad has used them irresponsibly. Al-Qaeda would use them irresponsibly. You have a lot of terrorist actors that you really wouldn't want sarin gas to get in their hands.
Yeah, I think it's important that whatever happens, we make sure that gas is neutralized, destroyed, whatever, because I don't even trust the Russians. They say...
I don't even trust us. I don't know. I don't want anybody to tell me where the military strikes would be, but at the same time, well, if it's where there's gas, are you going to release,
Right.
So,
yeah,
it's a very blurred situation.
Well, they never talked about exactly where they're going to launch the missiles, which makes sense. I don't think we should know. And they can't do that, and that's fine, and that's the way it should be. But still, it does make you wonder, what are you going to do? You certainly don't want to come over and put them to where those weapons are and release all that gas and just make things worse, unless they think they can just completely destroy it
and that's where
by fire.
To Chris Matthews' side, that now that there is a diplomatic channel open, we have to just flood that channel and use all of our diplomatic ability to say no. Here's the deal. Primarily what I would be going for right now, and why Kerry is in Europe, is we need to get Assad's signature on the treaty. Now you have leverage. Now you have reason for every country in the world that has any good sense, that doesn't want chemical weapons in the world, to back, and everybody go, okay, we're leading the fight of no chemical weapons.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question, comment, or you want to have a topic for us, make sure you give us a call at 530-621-1210 and let us know what you think.
And then let's talk about the U.S. history with napalm
Well,
from 1942.
Yeah.
And napalm is a most insidious weapon
We
that
used...
integrates into human flesh, but can also kill you by suffocation, that can also kill you by baking you.
Yeah, it's a nasty, and of course we used a lot of in World War II.
We used it in 42.
Yeah, during World War II.
We used it in Korea. We used it in Vietnam.
Yeah.
We are the reason there is a treaty saying no, you cannot use napalm on personnel, on human beings. You can use it as a defoliant or whatever, but you can't drop it on people because it's insidious. And it costs $42 100 gallons.
Pretty cheap stuff, huh?
So, as the story goes, and unlike Jonathan, I haven't given up on the United States of America, but, he without sin should throw the first stone.
I haven't given up, but let's just say that I'm highly skeptical of everything. And I was going to say, don't forget about thermite, though. We used a ton of thermite in World War II.
Yeah, there was all kinds of things that we used at that time that you would think twice about right now. But at that period of time,
maybe 3 times about, you know. Yeah. And folks, we said this last time, and I will say it again. I just got to tell you that I find the older I get, or the more mature I get, I just find the fact that we're still dealing with war, and it's just as evil and just as bad as it's ever been, that it's a reasonable solution to anything.
It reminds me, it's a bad movie. It's the Postman with Kevin Costner has a great line in the movie. It says, "Don't you wish conflicts could just be ended by the assholes that start them?"
Yeah, put Putin and Obama and Assad in a ring, give them all a scimitar, and work it out.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
I mean, never, ever do the guys that fight the war have anything to do with the guys that decide to send them to war.
No.
Speaking of which, I do want to recognize Cal Worthington.
Yes, he passed away.
World War II pilot, a innovator.
Yep.
In car marketing and advertiser without equal in the 1892.
I can actually
say go see Cal anymore.
I actually bought a vehicle from him.
Personally?
Personally.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cal worked the floor.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got the Long Beach store?
It was, no, it was the Sacramento store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, actually, my buddy here did commercials with Cal.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. I was having problems with one of his salespeople, and he came over and said, "Let's work this out." And very, very much a gentleman. And
well, he saw a deal walking off the floor, and you don't let that go. Now, and I don't know that you remember that you ever saw this, that you were old enough, but since I lived in Culver, Mar Vista at the time, and as you get to Culver Boulevard and Sepulveda, as you get into the north side of Culver City. Actually, Cal Worthington, post-World War II, worked for a guy by the name of Danny McGraw, who had an agency with a cowboy. This was on all of the posts of the car agency that said, "I'll stand on my head to sell you a car."
Right.
Danny McGraw, and it was Danny McGraw, I think Dodge or Plymouth. And Cal did work for him post-World War II.
Well, see, Cal, I wonder how many bugs Cal ate.
Oh.
I'll eat a bug to make a deal.
Yes. But he was, and since you did business with him personally, I had the pleasure of meeting Cal one-on-one. He was a real, honest-to-goodness guy.
Yeah, he seemed very nice. So good for him.
I've never actually met somebody who actually dealt with him. I didn't realize you had a one-on-one with him. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, good for him. I'm sorry it's passing. We all go, and he lived
he was a World War II co-pilot. I mean, he was a true patriot and a bit of a hero.
Yeah.
And he did something that's really hard to do days, is have a commercial that'll stay with you. I haven't seen a commercial of his in 20 years, and I still remember it. So that's pretty good.
Well, when we got away from jingles, and I've said that before.
They write them. I mean, I know people that are gainfully employed as jingle writers.
Well, and you got to get them. They stopped. We had a period of time in the 90s where jingle was, that's old fashioned. That'll never work. We won't brand because of it. It's coming back.
Yeah, when I listen to my old time radio, it's amazing. Everything's built around a catchphrase and a jingle. And with my recent separation from the National Hot Rod Association, mellow yellow drag racing.
Yeah.
That is about the worst branding and positioning, and how badly do these guys want money? Because they took it.
Obviously they did. And I don't know. They obviously came out of the 60s with mellow yellow and decided it's going to work.
Donovan talking about they be mellow yellow.
That's right.
By the way,
smoking banana peel.
It's the most exciting raceway name I've ever heard of. Ladies and gentlemen, you're at the Mellow Yellow Raceway. It sounds like you're about ready to board a plane.
No. It's called Welcome to NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Racing.
Still sounds...
Yeah, well, anyway, that was...
Anyway, moving right along.
Yeah.
I don't want to recapitulate your session with the sheriff this afternoon, but I did notice that it has come to the pen of Governor Moonbeam as to accept or reject some pretty stringent semi-automatic weapons laws in California.
It's a sad day in California.
He has to veto it in order for it not to go in the law, right?
He doesn't even have to sign it; just has to go to his office.
When did that happen? I don't ever remember that. Has that always been?
No, it's always been that way.
Wow.
It gives the governor an out, saying, "Well, I didn't sign for it."
Lame.
Yeah, and that's the way it is, unfortunately. And that is just the start of many bills that are coming down that is going to make California literally the most gun restrictive state in the union.
And going to make bad guys of everybody.
Hand, this could cause, as it has in Colorado with the recall of two of their Democratic state senators, this could cause a backlash from the gun community in California if managed right locally and by the NRA to try and bring some political parity back to our houses of Congress in the state of California.
So do you think that would actually happen? I mean, you've got things like the GOCA, Cal Guns, you've got a lot of organizations that are pro-California firearms, but do you think they would actually make a difference in the metropolitan areas, which mostly carry most of the vote?
In the particular case in Colorado, they were very specific in finding the senators that lived in vulnerable districts that had, and I mean, politics is no longer happen chance, nor is marketing, and they chose two people that were extremely vulnerable, that probably rode in on the Obama coattails of. I lived in Colorado, and I was kind of surprised that Colorado is a blue state.
Yeah,
but that's because of Denver and
it's just like California, with the two major metropolitan areas being the most blue
where the
versus
votes are.
The red.
That's right. Well,
but you have San Diego that's starting, and that area that kind of is not.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it's very interesting. It literally took the state of Colorado that was a very strong pro-firearm state. I mean, very strong.
Yeah, get almost anything legally.
And actually flipped it. And all of a sudden, the people living in Colorado went, wait a minute.
I have to tell you, politically, having lived in and been around some of this stuff, the liberal is, at the end of the day, much less tolerant than the conservative is.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the person, the ideology?
Well,
I'm just curious.
If you look at some of the stuff that they're weeping and crying about, and why we have to pass these gun laws that we're going to save the children, which they can enforce laws that they already have, and so of course these new laws are going to make all the difference.
Which
they're
makes my comparison
ingenuously concerned, but it's the wrong word. It's the political correctness. I'm not always, going, oh, yay, I feel that way.
Which makes my comparison to Soviet-era Russia even closer to reality.
Well, you know what? We're supposed to be a country with we have a Bill of Rights that has an amendment in it, and it's the interpretation of that is constantly at battle. And of course, I'm talking about the Second Amendment. And what's happening is that we've got politicians that actually believe that they can pass restrictive bills and it will make a difference. We had the sheriff in studio today, and I said, John, is there any reason that any of these bills that are going to go to the governor that's going to make any difference as far as your ability to catch criminals? And he looked at me and said, of course not. He says, we can't enforce what we have now. Making it restrictive is only going to make innocent people victims of the government. and was very steadfast that this is wrong as wrong can be.
But here's the thing. I think that tactically, if you're going to think about this, is it's a good move because you can add charges on. Instead of person being innocent, they just have to talk themselves out of trouble a little bit less, like Soviet Russia back in the day. You're bound to go to jail. It just depends on how much time you're willing to serve.
Do you remember the initials that the sheriff told us to look up?
AAPS? Yeah.
AAPS. We found out something very interesting, a little inside information on law enforcement. These departments are special. Their special agencies were set up initially to fight drug wars, okay, within the country. And they had special powers. They were special agents of some kind and all that. And they were set up basically to fight the marijuana and some of the illegal drug growth situations. And they had special names and badges and everything. He says, guess what? They've been disbanding those as marijuana has become more tolerant in our society. The number of those special agencies have been disbanded, but they're putting them together basically under Homeland Security so that they can come and enforce all these new gun laws that are being put on the books because they know the locals won't do it.
So, question. When is, and I'm sorry about this, this is a little...
do we have any I mean, are they going to come in and enforce California's gun laws?
Correct.
Yeah.
Not in your county.
That's what my sheriff says. It should be interesting, but he may not be. See, why it's going to be an independent agency that's going to do it is they don't have to call them up. They're going to be federalized. They don't have to call them up and say, guess what? We're coming in your county and we're going to arrest X, Y, and Z.
Well,
they just come in and do it.
Same deal as Wisconsin and Michigan with, we don't like, we're going to send a guy in to run Detroit and declare it bankrupt. Well, which I'm not real crazy about, but he's not a federal guy. I have a problem if the feds come in and say, "Okay, we're going to go and enforce your state law."
Yeah,
it's state law. Because I don't remember him saying anything because he was a state people, not federal. Because if it's state wise, if it's federal wise, you do have states that have basically stated, quote unquote, that if you come take a any federal law enforcement agency who takes a firearm in our state will serve jail time here.
Well, but that's not in California, and you got to understand what they're going to do. He said that these organizations just in California were funded with $25 million to improve the database of firearm owners,
the people who are allowed and are not allowed.
Yes, to improve the software in the database, to be able to choose instantly who they want to go visit or not by the amount of firearms that they legally own. Okay, and he says that money is also going towards vehicles, uniforms, badges, the whole shebang.
Well, and I have to interject here, and where this gets to me, and where you have the state fed thing going on, you already have this going on with abortion, which I responded to last week, much to some people's chagrin, is legal. Just like owning a firearm is legal. It's not an easy decision, right. But you have states making it impossible for a woman to access a procedure that is legal. And you don't have the feds coming in. It's not quite the same,
right?
But it is a violation of, not a constitutional right.
But at least it's a state issue, though. I mean, whether you agree with it or not, it's the state within itself handling it its own issue. Unlike, for example,
no, Roe v. Wade making abortion legal.
That's federal.
Well, yeah, but it's still the state fighting within itself. That's all I'm saying is the fact it's the interstate fight for whatever.
No, it's more the Koch brothers. It's not particularly infighting. ALEC, etc., is how the anti-abortion has slipped under the radar and affected these. And conversely, as we speak of California, this is happening in states that have majorly Republican houses of Congress.
Well, okay, so we found this information very interesting anyway, that no matter which way you want to take it, all of a sudden Big Brother is becoming Bigger Brother.
Gestapo? Is it time to drag that word out again?
See, the question I brought up with the sheriff, I said, okay, so let's take, we're looking at these laws, and he says, well, my department's not going to enforce them. And I said, it's not your department I'm worried about. It's the state police department I'm worried about, California Highway Patrol. And I said, what if you're stopped for speeding? And now the database on you in California, they get all the information on you put on their computer screens. They know everything there is to know about you. And on that information shows that you're a firearms owner, what firearms you own. If you have a concealed weapons permit, it tells you. If you have assault weapons, it tells you everything. So the problem that occurs is a normally law-abiding citizen would be stopped by a state police officer who could care less about what county he's in. Says, by the way, you don't happen to have any firearms with you, and you're being an honest citizen. Said, yes, of course, I'm on the way to the range, and I have my firearm with me. He says, may I see it? And it turns out to be, let's just say, because everybody brings up the ARs, let's say it's an AR, and you now have a firearm that if you had not registered under this new bill, because all firearms that are capable of taking a magazine able to hold more than 10 rounds is now considered an assault weapon in California, and you are going to be required to register it, and it will be taxed by some form. If you have not done that, you're going to become a criminal.
Which comes back to the other thing I've been reading online is there's apparently quite a few people that even if a cop even talks to them, they're now requesting to see their lawyer. Like, if you have a firearm in the car, say no to everything and say, I want my lawyer. That's everything I've heard lately is, no, you can't. Give me my lawyer. I'm done talking until I see my lawyer.
Well, that's probably the smartest thing you can do. More people get themselves in trouble because they keep flapping their gums. But my point is, what's going to happen is they're going to
just get you a small visit in jail until your lawyer gets there.
Well, right. But we've got all these. I'm not kidding you. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of pending legislation. Some of it in hold, some of it who knows, but is still moving forward. And
Jonathan, the only thing in response to what you're saying that occurs to me, most of my friends that are in law enforcement are on your side when they take off the uniform. All right. They're gun advocates, and they understand a whole lot better than most of us, that they can't get there in time. If something happens at your house, it's going to be done by the time they get there if you make the 911 call. So I think part of the question with this, and it goes back to your sheriff, the frontline enforcement people, maybe they are SS or Gestapo. Maybe it's okay that they feel one way, but as happens with things that I've been involved with, you've got people that think they have a large amount of power for a short amount of time, and I'm going to use it. But I think some of the older officers, if not some of the younger officers, would have to say, whoa, I'm not going to do that.
Yes.
The crazy
thing
depends
is... It falls right in line to the voting block. If you're a peace officer in Los Angeles, if you're a cop in Los Angeles, more than likely you're going to have the same mentality that, if it's a gun owner, he's a bad person. If you're a cop in El Dorado County who's more rural, who grew up in this area, it's going to be more liberal-minded with his views on firearms.
Well, I think the difference is whether they're pro or against. I think it's starting to create a more us versus them. It's more people.
It's been us versus them for a long time.
Well, yeah, but I think it's getting worse, especially with people who are pro firearm, who generally don't have an issue with cops. I've met very few pro firearm people that don't like cops. But the moment you
then you have to ride that line of reactionary radical.
Well, yeah,
Neither one of them likes cops.
Well, I agree, but I think it's come to the point where the average everyday firearm owner is going to start. A cop comes in, you're thinking, okay, what is his motive? What should I do? You're getting to a point where I think you might cause a situation that might end up hurting law enforcement up at some point. I could be completely wrong, but I see it causing more problems.
The other thing that I remind these younger officers all the time that I deal with, because I maintain and run the range out there for law enforcement as well, is I remind them, I said, at some point in time in your life, you will be a civilian. Okay? At some point in time in your life, all these laws that you're enforcing, and maybe enforcing heavily, will also involve you. Think about that as it goes on. They ran into an issue just recently in California about the firearms.
Yep.
That, and John, you may not know about this, law enforcement officers are able to purchase under the authority of their job any firearm they wish in the state of California. And that means guns that are not on the list of approved firearms in California. So they can buy these guns with a letter from their sergeant or lieutenant or whatever it may be, and they can buy them. Well, what happens, what they have forgotten about, is once they retire, they are no longer law enforcement, nor can they keep that firearm. All of a sudden, you have these guys that have dished out $700,000-$800,000 for a gun, and all of a sudden they're going, what?
Yeah, now they're starting backpedaling and go, that can't happen to us.
Yeah.
No, not us.
It can happen to you. When you become a citizen, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I constantly point out to them. You've got to remember what it was like, because what's happened is law enforcement is a young person's job to start with, okay? It really is. I mean, to go out there to do the beat, to chase the bad guys, to do that, you're not going to hire some 60-year-old guy like me to go out there and do it. It ain't going to happen. So,
you're going to give me a 9mm, I'm going to rest it on the window, and I'm going to drop them.
Yeah, so...
We'll ask questions, are you bleeding?
Yeah.
Good.
No, it's a young person's thing. But I have always said, and I've said this to some of the people that work at the training facilities and all that, I said, I don't believe that a person should ever become a law enforcement officer until he reaches the minimum of age 25. And the reason I said that is because I want that person to have a little bit of life prior to becoming a peace officer. I mean, we've have guys in departments that have hit the training facilities at age 18, given a badge, a gun, and a car, and technically in California they can't even own that gun because they're not 21 yet. We've seen it happen, and they don't understand what it's like to try to make a living, raise your kids, mow your lawn, do all those things that the rest of us have to do.
Are you
they
saying
have
they're
no
becoming
life experience.
You're saying they're becoming a product of the system.
That's exactly what's happened.
They're as much incarcerated as the youth of their same age in the prison. They haven't had any life, and then again, and not to take anything away from veterans, but you have guys that have been in for 3 tours, that have been in a place that is just absolutely fraught with danger.
Right.
Anybody could shoot you. Anything could explode. Anybody could attack you. And usually the civilian occupation is oftentimes as a peace officer. And they've had no time, because of the nature of speedy in, speedy out.
Right.
They've had no time to reacclimate to a society that doesn't work like that. But when you put officers on the street like that, you change the structure of our society.
Yeah,
You're concerned. I mean, if you had weapons in the car, you tell them you had weapons in the car. But in the day, is there any illegal drugs in the car? No.
Yeah, right. Well, it's a no answer to anything. I mean, they
weren't afraid that we were going to blow smoke in their face. That was not fair.
back then. But
it was not lethal.
No.
Although in some parts of town, if there was drugs in the car, you were running. You were stepping into a life-threatening situation.
Yeah. So there's my worries about all these bills. Not only are they ridiculous, and they're going to make. I was talking to the sheriffs. I said, how many people do you think are actually going to register their guns? And he says, none that I know of. So, I mean, here you have the law enforcement officer of, like the fourth largest county in the state saying his guys aren't going to enforce this. And now we know about a federal group that's going to come in to do this enforcement. Scares the hell out of me.
Well, and you're very right. I mean, this whole issue is locational.
Right.
In many, many ways, from the standpoint of in New York City, in Chicago, where guns and bullets and lives are cheap. Yeah. In Los Angeles, in the worst part, but then again, 5 people got killed in Santa Monica, in our halcyon hometown. In the urban area, or the cities, you go, I don't want anybody to have a gun, except if somebody's pounded down your door to try to kill you, and your next door neighbor's got a 9mm and can step outside and say stop, and if they don't, well, okay, we'll detain you.
So
statistics are showing that gun-free zones are not working.
Well, here's the interesting thing about
these housing. You look at Chicago and you look at the housing areas.
Most stringent,
right?
Some of the stringent gun laws.
And where is the majority of their gun violence and death? In those areas. And are those guns registered? No.
Well, it's a matter of mentality, and we don't digress. We just come back to an issue. When you have a gun gang and mayhem society, you're going to reap what you sow.
Well, here's the interesting thing about New York. I've been reading, besides apparently the city of New York, most of the sheriffs outside of New York have said, by the way, Mr. Bloomberg and Mr. Governor, we're not going to enforce your laws at all. And you have the governor basically saying, shenanigans, you have to. And the sheriff organization's going, we actually don't have to do anything if we don't want to, because law enforcement doesn't technically have to help you if they don't want to. So it's getting interesting at this point.
Well,
it underscores our government, our politics, our just total, screw you decisiveness. We are not seeking, nor do we want to seek ways on a good negotiable level to make things work.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you have a question or comment or have something for us to talk to, give us a call at 530-621-1210. That's 530-621-1210.
I knew there was a reason to add Jonathan to this show. I mean,
we need
perfect.
A shell.
Yeah. Perfect, Jonathan. Perfect. But what's the other big one? Hit that donate button. Donate, for crying out loud. I met a couple of our donators at a function this Saturday up at the airport. Was the EAA convention going on. We went up there to look at the airplanes and eat their food and had a good time at the Experimental Aircraft Association, which I was a member of for many years when I flew, and met a lot of veterans and law enforcement and retired and all that, and quite the conversations about everything that's going on in our state.
I have a topic to see if any of you guys are interested in. Have you, and this is a little geeky, but I find it interesting, they have found out that the NSA has been kind of backdooring the NIST. It's the body that helps encryption standards.
Right. And
it's found out the NSA has said, why don't you go with this standard instead of this standard, because we can crack it easier. And since Snowden and a couple other people have said so, a lot of people are worried by the fact the NSA meddling in that they've actually made it more unsecure. But if the NSA can do it, Joe Blow hacker can guaranteedly do it, because, So what do you think?
You know what? If we're going to get on into that subject, which is very interesting, it was also proven, I believe, in the last couple of days, I read an article talking about that the intrusion that NSA into our lives has been at a larger scale than admitted to, which was interesting. I mean, literally, literally listening to all our conversations, all YouTube videos, everything. I mean, it's like, we've been kidding around the last couple of shows. I'm still waiting for NSA to show up. Maybe I better not say that because I might. I don't know.
Well,
it's starting to worry me.
Well, if the NSA...
The good part is they're going to come to your house.
Well, if the NSA is watching my YouTube show, please make a comment about Real Flicks Reviews and let us know what you think.
Well, I don't know,
Thank you.
John. You live in that's a high crime.
I make where you live look like liberal land.
That's right.
Okay?
Which is so you're the lone Democrat?
You know what they do? They look at me and they go, "That's one. We don't need to waste our time."
Well, probably. I'm hoping you're right.
He survived the '60s, man. We can leave him alone.
I'm actually, I don't want to sell any wolf tickets, but if I was gonna pick on a pacifist, it wouldn't be me.
Yeah, I agree. No, you don't fit that bill. I can think of many others that would fit the bill a lot more.
I'm reasonable. If you seriously threaten me, then I'll seriously threaten you back. And I have no compunction.
Well, you're not going to cower in the corner, and so you are not the low-hanging fruit. So.
I am not going to beg for my life if you're going to take my.
That's right. We're going to go down fighting. It's something we learned.
I was going to say the interesting thing about the NSA thing, though, is you have Silicon Valley is legitimately worried about losing their corner on the market. So you have
Snowden was a rogue. Snowden's a geek.
Well,
he got this mega consultant job, moved to Hawaii, and then said not so much. Now, if we go with our friend with WikiLeaks, I mean, there we have just a lovely bunch of coconuts, because I forget his name at the moment.
Julian Assange. I think that's how you say his name.
No, Julian Assange is the WikiLeaks guy.
Yeah, right. Edward Snowden's
the
PFC
that he got the information from, who was convicted, and then is a transgender person.
Right.
Oh yeah. I
can't
forgot.
remember,
I don't remember his
her
name.
Yeah.
So my question is, on some levels, are we going to pay for his surgery?
Oh yeah.
Since he's in the military prison for the next 30 years.
That's a good question. If it's military prison, he's not actually under U.S. law. That's a good question.
He's under military law, which now is not don't ask, don't tell. It now allows LGBT.
Well, the question is, does the section that talks about jail terms actually require that? I mean, they still hang people for treason, so maybe he's out there knocking for rocks. They can put them in front of a firing squad. Yes, they can hang them. They can put them in, So
it's the military, so it's a little bit more dire. But,
so is he pounding?
And rightfully so.
And for any of our LGBT friends that are watching, I'm not trying to impugn anybody, but when you legally recognize something, kind of like legal marijuana in Colorado and Washington, it opens up a completely different can of fish. That while you're fighting to get the right, you don't think about, but when it comes to application, you got to go. Like the statement I was making, that a friend of ours' daughter, I think the daughter is lesbian, but her husband is transgendered. They got married, but they did not get legally married because of student loans, and that it would impact that in such a way.
I don't know. I'm still scratching my head on that one. I don't.
And then I was informed that they didn't need Proposition 8 because it's legal for transgender people to marry in the state of California, which sort of underscores transgendered kids being okay to be out in high school and play on or use restroom facilities of the gender that they choose to be.
Maybe it's changed since I was in high school, but out and legal are two different things. At least in this county, that poor male or female would probably have a pretty damn miserable time in high school.
Oh, they have a miserable time anyway. It's not, if you look at it as an issue, how would you like to be in a position like they are, where they literally feel trapped in the wrong gender? And I mean, I can't put myself in that position because I don't understand it, but that's what they say. And who am I to argue with it? And then You know?
Yeah, because transgendered is a completely different aspect. I mean, it
Gender
almost should
dysphoria.
be an LGBT.
Yeah, boy, we really got off topic about this, but yeah, I can't say that word either. Topic.
But that's the beauty, and that's why you need to send us a $5. That's why
That's
you need.
right.
You're sitting there, if you're watching, you're going, "What are these guys?" But this is one of the you're not going to get this on CNN.
No,
you're not going to get this on MSNBC. You're not going to get this on Fox. You're not going to get this on Glenn Beck. We're about as simple and as unwashed as you are.
Yeah.
But we sit down and talk about stuff, and we invite you to get involved.
Well, it's more like a fireside chat. Maybe what we'll do this winter, as the winter goes on, the screen behind me, we're going to have a fireplace.
And I can just set my house on fire, man.
We'll have fire going.
If we're going to call it fireside chats, I'm going to start being a little more presidential.
I'll have to. Maybe we'll have to. Like have a beer or two before we start the show.
I don't drink beer.
And I know. I haven't had a
we'll
drink
give you
in 20
some
years.
kind of intravenous drug, John. You will not know the difference.
Oh, great.
Well,
put you on a saline IV tap.
I can't believe that we just don't have all kinds of people watching this show, because to me it's very entertaining, and we get to, like I was saying, we get to move on to a lot of topics.
We've had this conversation. We need to promote it more ahead of time. And
yeah.
We're working on that.
Yeah, we're trying to get there. I'm doing the best I can. It was not a good week for me, and
it was. I'm working, so it was a little tough on me.
Yeah.
But folks, we appreciate those of you that are there. And then what we need to do is create some kind of brainwashing beam and just beam it into people's heads when they're not thinking about it.
And ladies and gentlemen, we actually do have a Facebook page. To take us a look, give us questions or comments. That's at facebook.com/THEOGTTV. All one word, that's THEOGTTV.
And then we also repost these shows. They are rendered when we are done. And you can build upon what we did the week before, maybe in, abstentia, where we're doing it now, and join us and say, last week
you said,
what are you talking about?
I'd love it. I really would. I like it if we can get some more entertainment. I like it when Bob calls. He called during the sheriff's hour, and which was nice. That worked out well.
I didn't have to deal with me.
No. We dealt with Bob instead. And then all of a sudden his phone was ringing, and he couldn't figure out how to stop his phone from ringing, so we had to hang up on him. It was one of those.
You just throw it up against the wall. You kill it.
Oh, boy.
I mean, believe me, folks, I own one of those phones where if they try to steal it from me in a parking garage and say, "That's your phone."
Yeah, they won't even take it. It's like that commercial, right?
I'm coming up to your county, and I'm taking the concealed weapons permit course with you on Saturday because I need to get rid of my phone.
You want to talk about phones? You're going to like this one. I have a Verizon. I'm with Verizon. I have an HTC DNA phone, which is no longer made. I have this holder on my motorcycle that holds the phone there. The phone sat there perfectly still for over 4,000 miles in rain, snow, sleet, and you name it. And this Saturday on the ride that the wife and I took, it went flying off the bike and landed in the road. I had to go back and find it. And of course, the glass was smashed to pieces. So I thought, I thought I had a warranty with this phone. So this is a warning.
As long as you've had it.
Well, actually, I do.
It's a third party.
Verizon uses a third party. You're going to love this, and I'm really pissed now. Verizon uses a third party for their warranty protection. So I call them up, and I said, look, I dropped the phone. The screen is smashed. Well, no problem. We'll take care of you. Get me your information. Give me your phone number. And by the way, your deductible is $100.
I told you about that. I'm paying $10 a month. For a $100 deductible, so once I give you $120 a year, if I need to use it, I got another $100. I can buy a new phone.
Well, here's the reason why that's
what
actually
a scam.
Well, here's the reason that's actually a good phone. My iPhone, if you can't get the deductible or whatever,
if you sneezed on it.
it's a I have a mil-spec case.
Yeah, he's got a case that you could drive over.
But here's my thing. This is a $600 device. That $100 deductible is a lot better than paying $600 for a brand new phone.
Still, I cannot remember being told when I signed up for the shiny new phone that I want the extended warranty on it. Oh, by the way, there's a $100 deductible. That would ring a bell right away.
Sprint sold me on that. I had just had my phone stolen, which is why I was getting the new phone. So I thought, yeah. Then I did the math. And wait a minute, I'm paying $120 to get a $100 deductible.
Yeah.
No, and the one I want, guys, is the Nokia. That's basically a camera.
You want that the
Windows,
1020.
The Windows
It's
phone.
the Windows phone. It's like the 1020, 1030.
I got to, since I was at Verizon, I got to play with it a little bit.
It's a Nokia phone.
Yeah.
And it runs on IBM's op system.
No, it's the new Nokia 10 something like 1020, 1030 actually runs on Windows Phone 8.
Yep, I saw it. I held it in my hand.
Yeah.
It's a Windows phone.
It has it's like a 41 megapixel camera.
I don't like Windows 8. I didn't like the phone. The phone looked nice, and they did it right. If you're a camera buff,
Windows 8. I said it runs on. What I meant to say, it runs on Microsoft. It runs on,
right.
Yeah, it's a version of Windows 8 because it runs on the NT kernel.
So what's interesting about it is this phone was built around the camera instead of the camera being built around the phone. So it is supposed to be a very, very nice camera phone. So
actually, and I read about this, and it was of all things, it was supposed to be Polaroid coming out with this camera that was also a phone. Because mine, it's not so much a phone, it's not so much a camera.
Yeah,
it's closer to my shoe.
Well, I've used my phone quite a bit for photos, but it's not high enough quality for me. It's just not there, and that's one of the things.
I have an ancient Rebel that the photos from it have been used in magazines, and they.
Trust me, in short, if you're not blowing this thing up as big as a poster, the photos look okay. I don't think it's the best. Your camera might have a better pixel rate.
It's like 41 megapixels.
Well, no, the new phone he's talking about is mine's like 12.
My Canon is like 6 pixels.
Yeah, I think mine's are 12. And still, I mean, it looks okay, and we post them a lot, and we use them, but they're not great. So I bought a nice little Sony Wi-Fi actual digital 25 pixel pixel camera, tiny little thing, smaller than my phone, and it just takes incredible photos, and I can keep it in my pocket. And it is,
See, the moral
really
of
nice.
The moral of the story: mil-spec cases.
Yeah, John. Yeah, but now you're carrying around a brick.
Yeah, but this is waterproof. It's drop resistant.
Hey, I have a buddy that bought a new Samsung. Doesn't have that kind of case. You can drop it in the toilet. You're good, and it's already that way, guys.
Yep.
We've wasted another perfect.
We have. It was a good hour. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Once again, our best wishes for all those involved with September 11th.
Today.
And really, no, seriously, I think it's an important date that we don't forget, and I want to make sure that we do it. I'm all in black today in honor of that. And I just want to.
Oh wow, you are!
I want to thank everybody. Yeah, I am.
Jonathan, does he have 2 eye holes cut in the bag? That's all I want to know.
No, fortunately not.
But
that
he's
yet.
black on black. He's like a mafia member.
I am. I look good. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this show. On behalf of John Majestic, Jonathan Charney, this is Rob Charney with Old Guy Tech TV. See you next week.